The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
I appreciate you not singing this time around. It's,
you know,
if this movie had come out in a timely manner related to the source material, you would have had to sing
Borderlands by Madonna.
No.
Borderlands seems like it's gonna lose my mind. No, I'm not really in a singing mood, number one. Number two, I haven't really done that bit for a while. Ever since
it's true.
The cavalcade of misfit soldiers has been trying to, join in our little session here from week to week. Get the Dorians and the Shay Tates and the Jason Teasley, who's down there. Hello, Jason. This is an audio medium still, sir.
I said hello.
It took you 20 minutes. Ever since everyone's been...
respect the lag between you two connections. It's okay.
Between everyone trying to muscle in our territory, I got out of the habit of singing because that was the thing I used to do just to crack you up or make you nuts. I'll take either. And then everyone else started showing up.
That was about 50-50 actually on your batting average. So you're good.
Yeah, and then we started having an audience. So I was like, well, fuck, I got to get to it. So yeah, now I got to behave myself.
Well, everybody, if you're listening to this after the fact, you have the benefit of knowing whether or not I'm about to put my foot firmly in my mouth. This is a nothing movie. And I don't know how long we're going to be talking about the movie. We'll talk for the usual. Hang on. We'll talk for the usual length of time because that's kind of what we do here. We fill the airtime. But how much of this is going to be devoted to discussing Borderlands is a bit of an open question, and my hunch is not much of it.
For those of you playing the home game, Borderlands is a 2024 American science fiction action comedy film co-written and directed by Eli Roth of Thanksgiving fame, based on the video game series directed by Gearbox Software. It stars Cate Blanchett as Lillith, an outlaw who forms an alliance with a team of misfits to find the missing daughter of the most powerful man in the universe. All right. The ensemble cast features Kevin Hart, who Robert hates, Jack Black, who everyone else hates, Édgar Ramírez, who nobody knows, Ariana Greenblatt, Florian Munteanu, Gina Gershon, who I did not realize was Gina Gershon. My God, how she has aged, and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Mark saw Gina Gershon's name come up in the credits and went, wait, from Showgirls?
Yeah. Borderlands premiered at the TCL Chinese Theater in Los Angeles on August 6, 2024, and was released in the U.S. by Lionsgate, which we'll talk about momentarily, on August 9th. The film was panned by critics and has grossed $10 million worldwide. More on that in a moment. All right. So, real quick, Jason, did you actually play Borderlands? Because I know you asked to be on here.
Yes.
I would assume you have some degree of connection to the game.
Yes, Borderlands 1 and 2 are probably some of my favorite games to play, especially the first one. The first one is one of the Game of the Year version is probably one of my favorite games to just to pop in and just spend a month of playing, just kind of grind out and play, just to have an open world shooter and just do the side quests. Just got Just introduced it to my daughter, actually, getting her to play it on her Steam account. And it is actually like I said, one of my favorite games. Had really high hopes because, like I said, it has a lot of lore that you can explore. Was really excited for it, and we got this shit show and was really disappointed and really pissed off.
Real quick, Robert, and I do mean real quick, did you play the game at all, or are you just familiar with it because you have a passing familiarity with life, the universe, and everything?
I don't know about the everything part of that sentence, but yeah, I've played Borderlands. It'll let me talk a little bit about some of the adaptation process when we get to it, but I've played one. It's a pretty decent time. You can't just. It's not a daily player in the general sense. Like when you play it for a bit, because it's one of the pioneers of the looter shooter genre. So you play it for a bit, you get used to the grind, but there's elements of the execution and part of the style of the game, and this is inherent to what they wanted for the franchise. So it's a feature, not a bug. That just make it a little bit grind. It grates a little bit on you the longer you play it. So you come back, like Jason said, you come back, spend a few weeks, have a good time, put it on the shelf for a couple of months. Like that's kind of the cycle, unless you're really into the gameplay loop. 2 is maybe the better iteration because that's the one that actually marries narrative with the gameplay better than 1 does. 1 has a very loose story. That's why they cribbed so much from 2 for this one. But 2 also was when the cracks started to show in the franchise. Because 2 itself is very good, very well received. But the longer it drug on, and when I say it drug on, that thing has like 3 DLCs and there's something they called the pre-sequel because jokes. That it just kind of drug on, and some of the bitterness of the writing staff kind of started to show through. It's very drawn out. It's very again by design, some of this. But everybody takes like 20 minutes to say something very simple for the most part, and it
sounds like our podcast.
It's worse because it's more rambly.
Oh my goodness, more rambly than us. Heavens to Betsy.
Because most of the time it's not dialogue; it's one person speaking. So your quest giver, instead of saying "Go here, get this," fills it out with unbearably purple prose, and you just kind of want to shoot yourself in the head after a little bit. But part of the success of Borderlands was it was a little bit counterculture to gaming at the time. First one comes out and it's very brightly colored, very loud, has a very comic book art style to it. And at a time when a lot of other video games were going more drab and more realistic, here's something that's almost hyper stylized. And it was again kind of a shot in the arm to a lot of ideas that were kind of floating around out there, and being a little bit different is not the worst thing in the world. But it just kind of drug on, and then 3 is a mess.
Yeah, we don't talk about 3.
I don't know which one my kid played. Because I told him we were gonna go see Borderlands. We'd seen the trailer for it, and the trailer did its job. The trailer made the movie look, if you don't play the game, fun. Post-apocalyptic, colorful characters running around shooting stuff. Got to get a thing. All the goodness. So I said to Jonas, at the time, I says, son, he says, father, because he calls me father. I said, you should play the video game since you're into that Xbox kind of thing. And there's a game called Borderlands. He was like, Borderlands, you say? I didn't know there was a game called Borderlands. I was like, yes. If they're not making movies from comic books, they're making movies from video games these days. And I'm the original thought left in Hollywood. And so he went home and he turned on his Xbox. And I think it was Borderlands 3 that he found. It was like the only one available for the Xbox, whatever the fuck iteration he's on. And so fast forward, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but I did ask him when the movie was over, because I'm watching this as a movie. I have no connection to the game. I've never played the game. I think he's tried to get me to play it once, and I was like an old man, and I could barely see what I was doing, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I give up. So I asked him when we walked out of the theater, I was like, how much from the actual game is in this movie? And he said, yes, no, maybe, here's half my phone number, email me. And I said, okay, let me try a different question. Are the vaults of any in the game at all? They made a big deal out of this vault. Is the vault a thing in the game? And he said, there are vaults in the game. And at that point, I stopped asking questions.
Okay,
so I'm going to try this again with two adults. Okay, let's try this again with two adults and see if we get any further. What are the one-to-one translations from the game to the movie? I just want a list.
Okay, straight 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Character of Lillith.
Okay.
Character of Roland. Horribly cast and horribly written, but the character and his backstory is functioning.
Tina.
Character
Tina
of
is
Krieg.
the girl with the rabbit ears, right?
Yes.
No,
Tina.
Tina's. We don't talk about Tiny Tina. Tiny Tina sucks, and this iteration of Tiny Tina is not Tiny Tina from the game. I left her out for a reason.
Oh, okay.
I like this
hang on.
iteration of Tina.
Hang on. So there is a character in the game called Tina that they are trying to put in this movie, but it is Tina in name only.
Not in name only, but they mashed her together with another character that was a choice and a bad one.
Okay, keep going.
Look, Tiny Tina is unbearably obnoxious to begin with, and coming from the same series with Claptrap, that's saying something. So they had to do something with that character, but again, I'll leave that alone.
Claptrap, they did.
Claptrap's pretty much 1-to-1. Tanis is more or less 1-to-1. Tanis in the game isn't quite this autistic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moxie is.
Moxie's barely a character in this, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, you know, 1-to-1 is
city. So hang on, whole planet of Pandora. Iridians, they're not as well known as our opening monologue makes them out to be, but yes.
Okay.
Existence of the vault is known on Pandora. People come there looking for it. Never goes well for any of them.
Okay, so that is an actual thing in the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
The entire first game is find the vault, open the vault.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Then fight the giant monster that comes out of the vault.
Okay.
That was wasted in this movie.
Horribly.
Is the vault in the game as it is in the movie, where inside of this thing is the greatest weapon known to mankind, and that's why we're all fighting for it?
Yes.
Sort of.
Okay.
Yes and no.
By the time you never actually go into the vault in the first game. Again, you open the vault, giant monster comes out through it. You have to kill the monster. Then you get rewarded with loot.
Question.
Getting to the knowledge in the vaults is more of a 2 and 3 thing.
Okay. Does the vault make Lillith into Dark Phoenix?
No.
Hang on. In 2, sort of.
Okay.
No, she's already a siren.
Okay, so I'm dying, not dying, but I am definitely interested now to hear what your don't start doing it. Let me host a podcast. But I am interested in hearing your craft review of this movie now, because it does sound like they did a fairly decent job of a faithful adaptation from the game to the movie, as in, like, there were recognizable things from the game to the movie. It wasn't like they went in a completely different direction.
Let me give you an example of what this is, kind of.
Okay.
So, the adaptation of Ender's Game is a wonderful example of how to do all the details pretty much right from the book, but miss the point entirely and have it be nothing like the material. Little bit of that here. Hey, look, details. We'll use sound bites. Here's a bunch of places, if you play the games, you might recognize. And kind of, but lose the forest for the trees.
Okay.
Or
this happens with Broadway musicals.
3, do a lot of fan service, but get nowhere.
So this happens a lot with musicals, where we're going to take this thing and we're going to turn it into a musical, and we're going to put these really fun songs in there and dances, and it's going to be, merriment across the board. And like, okay, but using this format, doing it the way you've done it, you've missed the point of the movie.
It would be like
than not.
Okay, just to kind of tie it into a recent review that you guys done. This would be like if Bot and Vought Enterprises got a hold of, had their own video game property, and this was basically Dawn of the Seven.
Okay, gotcha.
Pretty much, shoehorning a lot of stuff in for the sake of getting it on screen.
Gotcha. One thing I wanted to talk
basically, this is kind of on par. If you want another example, it's not as well executed, but remember the Warcraft movie, Mark?
Oh, do I ever?
Yeah, it's a lot of, hey, if you know the lore, you'll know this, and we just won't do a lot of explanation, and we'll throw a bunch of crap at the screen and see how that plays. It's kind of that.
A lot of fans, like I said, there's a lot of fan service that goes nowhere.
You know what's hysterical? Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, is nothing like the game. The character is there, but the character goes on his own adventure. They gave the character some pathos. They surrounded him with some side characters that were fairly interesting, and they gave it a plot that, that serviced the character well, but none of this was anything like the game per se. And we gave the original Sonic the Hedgehog a rave review. And it does make me think that, yes, it is entirely possible to adapt a video game. I mean, the best case scenario is you get all the goodies, all the fan service in there, but you actually make it about something, and you make a real movie. But in lieu of that, at least take the character and make a fun story that people can buy into. If you can't seem to adapt the game at all, Jason, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, basically, this is a modern day Resident Evil.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around.
At least Resident Evil understood the tone and core of that franchise.
The first one did.
Yeah, I'm just saying. No. I'm saying it's Resident Evil. It was Resident Evil in name only. Yeah, it did a lot of fan service, but to follow the Resident Evil storyline, it didn't. Okay. It didn't follow anything in the. It was very loosely based. It was all over the place with the mythos.
Okay, third attempt at this. So, kind of moving on. This was put up by Lionsgate, and before we get into the plot and then the craft review, I did want to address this really quick because it feels like Lionsgate gets its hands on some pretty decent properties. Like Lionsgate really takes some big swings, but much like our conversation 2 weeks ago regarding the Fox movies, I'm wondering if their batting average is about 500 plus or minus a degree or so, because it feels like for every Hunger Games or John Wick, there's another one of these. Because Robert, for as long as you and I have been reviewing movies, and it's been about a decade now, I keep coming back to every time we do a Lionsgate, there's a 50. I mean, fucking Moonfall was Lionsgate, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
It seems like Lionsgate takes these big hulky swings, but more often than not, hits the umpire with the bat, misses the ball entirely.
Lionsgate is sustained in large part because they will put out 2 or 3, probably more 3 or 4, somewhat major releases a year.
Yeah, for the people at home, these are some of the franchises, film series that Lionsgate has put out: Leprechaun, Saw, Hostel, Twilight, Rambo, at least the last 2, The Expendables, all 4 of those, all of the Hunger Games movies, Now You See Me, John Wick, the Divergent series, Sicario, The Hitman's Bodyguard. So, their top 10 highest grossing films worldwide, they've never hit the billion mark, but they've come awfully close with Hunger Games Catching Fire. Second to that is Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2, then Mockingjay Part 1, then Breaking Dawn Part 1. So, yeah, these top 5 movies are all Hunger Games and Twilight, which tells you a lot about fucking Lionsgate.
Yeah.
What it tells you a lot about is the state of the film industry.
And coming in at number 9 is The Day After Tomorrow. And number 10 is La La Land, which beat out John Wick Chapter 4, which makes me want to go into the woods to live deliberately. But some other really big hits on here. You got Now You See Me, Wonder, Knives Out, which actually went straight to Netflix, but it did a quick
Well,
detour
the
into the
sequel did.
theaters.
The original actually had a release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Blair Witch Project from 1999. So
One of their first big hits.
yeah, so I mean, like I said, Lionsgate wildly unpredictable.
Yeah, they're very much up and down, and Lionsgate is about as close as you're going to get these days to a bigger studio that is still artist friendly, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's not quite like A24, which is just go do your thing.
Yeah, we are here to present whatever crazy thing you come up with, and hope you win the. We hope you're not everyone everywhere all at once. We hope you're not Beau is Afraid.
In fairness to Beau is Afraid, that movie needs a serious reevaluation by the general public, I think. I mean, it lost a boatload of money, and I know that's your point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it kind of got savaged by people, like by actual moviegoers when it came out, and mostly because everybody and their dog wanted that director to do another movie that was like Midsommar or
Mhm.
Hereditary, and that is very much. How did I hear this described? Somebody put it the best way I heard, saying that Beau is Afraid is a bad addition to that director's horror catalog like Midsommar and Hereditary is a little bit like saying the Mona Lisa is the world's worst car.
So back to Lionsgate.
You're not wrong, but you completely missed the point.
Yeah. So I just wanted to the line there about this is still very much artist driven. I just want to take a look at that sentence for a moment and really bat it around like a cat, because we say the word artist driven and the knee-jerk reaction is, oh good, it's out of the studio's hands. This isn't going to be studio notes the movie. This isn't going to be developmental hell. This isn't going to be hang on. This isn't going to be mucked up by a lot of studio interference. We are going to get artist driven, artist promoted, produced work here, and we'll get closer to what fans of any, if it's an IP, fans of any given IP want. And I would like to remind you that Star Wars was artist driven and had to be saved by somebody in production, namely the editor. I would like to also
George Lucas. Hang on, let's be very clear. George Lucas's wife at the time.
Yeah, I would also like to remind you that the Phantom Menace was artist driven. Okay,
and
that
there was not someone to say this.
Right. So just because something is artist driven, I mean, Robert and I have talked about this before. We have because of the explosion of streaming movies and the cut a check to an artist, let them go do whatever, and we'll throw it up on Netflix and Lobster. We have gotten a lot of artist driven projects to where both Robert and I looked at it and said, was there not an adult in the room to say no to any of this? And clearly there wasn't. These are overlong, overindulgent. There was too many babies in the movie and not enough cuts, and we have had all kinds of criticism. So just because something is artist driven or your studio is artist driven, you still have to be responsible in your filmmaking.
There's the romanticization of the auteur theory of filmmaking is something that really needs to die again. I mean, hang on. Like, this came up again recently because Kevin Costner spent like Portugal to make his Horizon saga. And
Paramount is ready to eat a gun over that. I think it's
probably. Yeah. And people started doing at least he didn't have to deal with studio notes. At least it's his unfiltered vision. And people who make movies come out very clearly and have said, no, a good producer or a good executive producer is there to provide friction. To smooth things out. You don't want studio notes the movie because you want someone with enough of a focus and enough of a vision to push back on unreasonable requests, but you need someone else on the other side who's strong enough to go, look, man, people have to sit through this. Let's not shoot 8 miles of film. Yeah. And then let's not shoot 8 miles of film, cut it down to 4 miles of film, and still have to break the movie into 3 parts. How about we not do that?
Yeah, all of this to say, I think Lionsgate's heart's in the right place, and clearly they've had some, they've obviously had some real hits. I mean, look, I know I reviewed the entire Twilight series with Melissa way back in the day. I had some good things to say about it. I had some not so good things to say about it. We did Sean and I did the Hunger Games. You and I did catch Snakes and Wine and Roses, whatever the hell the name of the movie was last year. Like, I think Lionsgate overall is like a filmmaking philosophy. Their heart's in the right place, but I do think it's hard to be the bad guy, I guess is what the point that I'm trying to get at. It's hard to be the guy that says no. It's hard to be the guy, it's hard to be. I love this example. I use it all the time. It's hard to be Spike Lee, telling Damon Wayans, no, Damon, you can't do that accent. Get the fuck out of here. It's hard to be the guy in the room telling all the children no. It's hard to be the bad guy. It's hard to be the one nobody likes. But that's just being a responsible adult. These are, $100 million, $200 million projects here. These are not to be taken lightly. And somebody has to be there to say, to still be on planet Earth, look around at reality and go, this isn't going to work. Change it.
Somebody needs to look around what's happening with the Acolyte and go, no, we should just not do this.
So rounding this back to Borderlands, I'm wondering, I was listening to the Half and the Bad Guys talk about this today, and I guess the original screenwriter wrote a screenplay that was that did service to the video game, and then I'll just quote Mike Stacasa, whatever his last name is, from Half in the Bag. Eli Roth got a hold of it and said, "Oh, this is too good. Let me ruin it." And we got this mess. And
the studio wanted a lot of reshoots as well.
Mm-hmm.
The studio stepped in and wanted almost that's why there's another I think there's actually another person credited as a director, is because there had to be so many reshoots done because Eli Roth was actually off doing Thanksgiving. And they wanted so many reshoots done. I think he's actually credited it as a second director because the studio stepped in.
On the wiki, it's Eli Roth as director. The screenplay is by Eli Roth, and the original guy that he's using a nom de plume, Joe Crombie. That's not his real name.
No, that's like Alan Smithy.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's like second unit directors and all of that are getting a lot of credit for this movie. But Jason raises a good point. There was, for whatever this original vision was, the studio got heavily involved. Eli Roth changed a lot of it, and by the end of it, you have not quite something as incoherent as Fantastic, but something in the same ballpark.
Yeah, because it was a hard R.
Putting together Eli Roth with Avi Arad was just never going to create anything other than a mess.
Oh, God. All right. Jason, do you want to give the last word here on the development and pre-production before we get into the craft stuff?
I mean, it's always a bad thing when you have studios getting too involved. And this is a classic because this movie was done, if I'm not mistaken, in 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's set in post-production for a long time, and that's why there were so many reshoots and everything. The casting was horrible. I only like 3 people that was actually cast in the movie, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But yeah, you have to actually, and I think this goes a long way in movies currently. Studios are overstepping, I guess you could say, and ruining a lot of movies nowadays, and trying to appeal to certain niche audiences rather than the grand audience, and movies are suffering.
It's an interesting point. I think, yeah, it's got to be somewhere in the middle, because 2 minutes ago we were advocating for, having a producer, an executive producer there to ground things, make sure they're running smoothly, making sure this is working. But you're right. You go to the other side of the pendulum, too much of that, or the wrong kind of producing, which I think is more of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's the it's the Poochie thing. And for those that don't watch The Simpsons, they're trying to create a character for.
I don't know what Charlotte Flair has to do with what we're talking about, but
God, there we go.
So in The Simpsons 100 years ago, they were trying to create a new character for Itchy and Scratchy, but it was very focus grouped and all of that. And so they were looking at all of these things that were cool in that window of time at that moment. And so Poochie became this amalgamation of what out of touch executives thought was cool at the time, and it made nobody happy. And then they wrote him off the show by sending him into space, which is where the phrase he went back to his home planet came from.
Died on the way to his home planet.
Yeah. You don't want no supervision because that's toddlers running an asylum, but you don't want Poochie either. And the fact that we have to say that out loud and think that there's not a whole lot going on in the middle makes me sad for the state of art. Robert, sad for the state of art is the phrase that pays here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. So hit me with that sad but true plot synopsis.
So we open with the unnecessary ADR monologue about the ancient aliens who left behind fragments of technology and then vanished, and their stuff is the basis for everything that we have in the far-flung future when mankind has started colonizing all the different planets. And the big thing, and the rumor has it that somewhere on the planet of Pandora, there's a bunch of blue aliens. Sorry, different Pandora. And we're looking for, sorry, I'm getting my generic MacGuffin names confused because Pandora is a bunch of different things. So is unobtainium, but here we are. Anyway, on the planet of Pandora, rumor has it exists the vault. A portal to another location, dimension, whatever, where is stashed a reserve of technology and knowledge from the Iridians that they just didn't want anyone to have. And people go there now looking for it, and they're referred to as vault hunters. And the 5 mega corporations all have representatives down there, and they're all sponsoring this because you have we only talk about the Atlas Corp in this movie, but Hyperion gets a mention too, doesn't it?
Very briefly.
Yeah, they're to blame for Claptrap. But actual lore, there's like 4 or 5 mega corporations, and the gameplay related to them is all their guns specialize in different things. Some of them hit really hard, some of them shoot really fast but do less damage, some of them are more inaccurate, again, gameplay. So if someone's got a whatever dropped, that's actually pretty good. This dropped, that's no good. Or certain attributes only spawn on certain groups of guns because this is all about random looting. So that's what Pandora is. We then cut to Kevin Hart, the world's shortest stormtrooper. Crimson Lance, as he rescues. Is actually
a joke in this.
As he rescues Tiny Tina from imprisonment, and all of us who have played the games died a little inside.
Okay.
They break out because Roland is a good guy trying to do a good thing, sort of. It's never actually explained. We're left to question whether or not he's just being greedy or if there's something else going on. Poorly done. As they're breaking out, they rescue Krieg, who's a big guy who used to be horribly deranged, and now is only partially deranged. And he decides he really likes Tiny Tina, so they're going to follow along. And they all escape. They head to Pandora. Then we meet our main character, Cate Blanchett, who's playing Lillith. She is hired by Atlas, along with a bunch of other people, to go rescue Tina, because Tina is Atlas's daughter, and you'll be paid handsomely. So Lillith, who is actually from Pandora, heads back there, and our shenanigans begin ensuing. She shows up. She finds Claptrap, who we all wish would just stop. Just stop. But he's played by Jack Black, who is basically a human Claptrap. So
yeah, pretty much
kind of how that goes. So she hunts them down, finds Tina. Tina reveals that she is partially cloned from what is supposed to be Iridian DNA. And because she is part Iridian, that means she's able to open the vault because you need someone of Atlantean blood to open up the gates of. You've got to be a
Olympus.
Draconid to open up the Sky Pillar, and boy, I'm just really confusing that. That's such a stupid trope. But so, and Tina is in theory that. Now, anyone who's watched any other movies other than this one would know, no, it's not Tina. But well, and as she tries to get Tina, Roland shows up. Krieg is there. They kind of get together as a group after they kill a bunch of Crimson Lance soldiers. And we get the uneasy alliance that remains uneasy for a long time, despite stupid reasons. They go find Tanis, who is Jamie Lee Curtis, again, playing someone who's basically autistic. And that's, I feel like, the only note she was given. But Tanis is a xenoarchaeologist who's done a lot of work on the vaults and the Iridians and all that fun stuff. So she's our quest giver and points us in the direction on the map where we need to go. So she points us to one of the fragments of the vault key, which they find. They already have the other one because doing it off camera is so much fun. And you put those two pieces together, which they do, and then you just got to find the location of the vault, which they do now. Again, there's some map looking. But before they head off to the vault, Lillith is contacted by Mr. Atlas, who goes, I've been tracking you the whole time, right? Like, I know exactly where you are. I'm coming to get you. You'll get paid. Do the smart thing. And Tina, because she's stupid, only overhears the last half of this conversation and then tries to blow everything up, which is true to character in the game as well as in this stupid movie. So she gets left behind. They all head off. Lillith and Claptrap then wander around her old settlement, where she comes to the realization that she is, in fact, the girl who is the key to everything, not Tiny Tina. And she's the special one. She's the chosen one. She gets the lightsaber to fight off the dark. Sorry, wrong one.
Okay, Robert, we got it.
So they go to now try and save the day. Everyone else does get to the vault location. They try to open the vault, but of course, Tina is not special. So it doesn't open. Atlas shows up, Édgar Ramírez, who at this point, I'm just wondering how he still gets work.
It's so
he
funny.
shows
And
up.
I don't want to interrupt too much, but like, I'm looking at him going, he looks familiar, but he's not really, but he's not a good actor. So he can't possibly be somebody I know. And then I realized it was Édgar Ramírez, and I'm like, oh God, what happened to you?
I don't know that he's ever been good. I'll just be candid. Bring up his filmography in case I'm really misremembering.
Yeah, keep going, but now I am curious.
So he shows up and like, okay, you know what? We'll have better luck with the next clone. We have the key, we have the location, we can kill this one. Then Roland shows up to try and save the day, fails miserably because Kevin Hart. Then Lillith shows up and is like, no, I have all the psionic magic powers. I'm the one you need. She opens the vault. The vault empowers her to turn into the Firehawk, which is kind of just Lilith's nickname from 2 and 3. She gets it at the end of 2, if memory serves, or partway through 2. It's been a while. We get our big final shootout. She does eventually open the vault. Atlas goes into it with her. Then he gets eaten by the monster off screen, basically. Our heroes all reconnect and, well, we've found the vault and we're going to keep Pandora safe. And I am the Firehawk, protector of this shitty planet. And yeah, that's the end. That's it. It's nothing. Please stop. Please stop.
All right, Jason. All right, Jason, stop pumping your camera and tell us how you feel about this movie.
I hated it. I mean,
I hadn't gotten that.
I mean, where to begin? The only characters I really liked about this, I mean, I liked Lillith overall, even though they didn't stay true to character. She is a siren in the game from the start. She has the power of the siren, which is in the game, which is like only a female race of mythical beings, quote unquote, that can summon the power of the sirens. and she's not originally from there. She's off world, and she's a vault hunter, not a bounty hunter. I mean, they try to shoehorn so much stuff into this and go way off. I did like, unlike Robert, I did like Tiny Tina in this. They didn't really try to keep her game accurate, but
They couldn't have.
they
There's
could
no way
with
you
with
could have.
it being with it being PG-13, you couldn't keep it very game accurate because she is very very unhinged in the game and very very she's like basically if you took Harley Quinn and turned her up to like 1,000 and made her a kid with explosives.
Tiny Tina is foul-mouthed, never shuts up, and is one of the most grating characters in video game history.
I think that we could have benefited from having Handsome Jack in this.
No. They're saving him
Not
for the sequel. That's never going to happen.
That's
Yeah,
not happening now. No.
Handsome Jack we could have benefited from having Handsome Jack in this. Just kind of a
Wait a minute,
reference.
Jax from Sons of Anarchy is in the Borderlands game?
Shut the fuck up, Mark.
Okay, first, it's Handsome Jack, Jack.
Right,
he is
that's what RoboCop calls him in the last couple of seasons of Sons of Anarchy. Handsome Jack. Continue, Jason.
First
Before
of all,
Robert.
No, that's Jax, plural, Jax,
Feels
not.
feels like he was calling him Handsome Jack, but
Well, no, because Peter Well's a professional.
okay.
No, Handsome
Before
Jack
Robert
is
and
the
I have a
primary,
fucking blink off. Let's keep going, Jason.
primary antagonist from Borderlands 2, and is actually, again, people remember him in no small part because the voice actor ad-libbed all the best stuff from that character. If you ever got a laugh out of the butt stallion line, he ad-libbed that.
Okay. And speaking of butt stallion, keep going, Jason.
Yeah. And I think the whole Kevin Hart casting for Roland was absolute ridiculous because you needed Roland to be an intimidating force. I think you kind of missed out on having is a Brick that was in 2, Robert?
Brick's in 1. Krieg's from 2.
Okay. I think you could have substituted that out for him. And got a
quick question.
Much better.
Is Roland in the game a short black guy?
Roland in the game is not short.
No,
Okay.
he's like 6'5" in the game.
So
Roland,
now I'm curious. Did someone at Lionsgate, when they were casting this, just like, okay, we want that duo, The Rock and Kevin Hart, and somebody got that message wrong and just went and got Kevin Hart?
I think what happened is Kevin Hart expressed interest, and they went, "Yay, Kevin Hart!" Look, man, it's a complete misread of the dynamic because Roland is the straight guy in.
Right.
He's very straight laced.
Mm-hmm.
You need like Idris Elba stoicism here, or Denzel Washington when he's not.
Well, you could have gotten away with The Rock too. I mean, have you seen the fucking Red One trailers?
Yeah, but why overpay for mediocre?
It's a great question with this movie. Keep going.
You could have got somebody that could have been. I mean, hell, you could have got Michael B. Jordan and played a better.
No.
Hang on. He's not wrong, and I don't like Michael B. Jordan, but he's not wrong.
For just to play that, if you would have got like Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger for that role, it would have worked.
Okay.
Just to play that got it. Just to basically play the Killmonger role for that, it would have worked. Just like like he said, like kind of very, very straight, angry kind of, doesn't have a lot to say. When he does speak, it has kind of poignancy to it. They kind of rushed the whole, Craig, thing, and they didn't. I wish they would have had the inner dialogue with him. It would have made it so much better if you just seen his psychosis going on with the inner dialogue while he was trying to go through stuff and trying to figure stuff out and just going through his berserker phase. That would have been nice. And if you just would have just kind of just sprinkled in like cameos from some of the background characters, like you could have done so much better. I said this in our group chat. If this would have got the Twisted Metal treatment and been like a 4-season series on like Amazon Prime or Netflix, this would have worked so much better.
Okay.
Because there's that much content.
I was gonna say, when you say that's because there was a lot going on in these games that doesn't fit into a 2-hour movie.
Right. There's so much content you can explore that, and you could flesh out a lot of stuff and explore it. Like, you could have done like the arenas that you fight in to kind of grind out the whole vehicle thing. You could have explored that a little bit. The weaponry. I mean, the guy that you buy the weapons off of, you just see 2 brief cameos from him, and he's some of the best things in the game. Just he
is a funny guy.
Just the interactions you have with him in the game when you're buying stuff from him is kind of like, to throw it back to one of the best merchants ever, is the merchant from Resident Evil 4. He is actually a memorable character and a staple hold of the game itself. So yeah, there's just so much content and so much meat on the bone that you barely even scratch the surface that you could have fleshed this out at least into a really nice limited series and got at least, like I said, give it the Twist of Metal treatment. You could have got 4 seasons out of it, fleshed it out, and got a much better fan base reaction that would have been happier, and an overall better critic and audience happiness out of it.
The reason why I don't think that you're going to see, outside of maybe Amazon or Netflix, both are companies with money to burn, and they have a vested interest in just creating content to attract viewers to their streaming services. The reason why television used to exist was because it was propped up by commercials. 100 years later, we have streamers. And the thought was, if we create original exclusive content, more people will sign up for our streaming services. It's 4 years later, and they've learned that isn't the case. There are certain things people go to a streamer for, but they'll go to like 1 or 2 at best. Certainly not the 87 currently in existence. So I would tell you that I think the days of like the Twisted Metals, I know you're like, but Fallout. Okay, but Fallout was also Amazon, and they have money to burn. But I think, Twisted Metal came out because
Amazon is burning the gross domestic product of Spain on Rings of Power. Like they don't care that much.
They don't care. Everyone buys their stuff from Amazon. They'll be in business forever.
Funny you should mention that. Commercials, but Amazon actually makes more money off of the ad space they sell on their main site than they do with their actual like products. So everything on the internet is driven by advertising, and it sucks, but that's where we are.
So going back to, Twisted Metal was a Peacock show at a time when people, when the people at Peacock and everybody else, Max, Hulu, whatever, was like, okay, if we create this, they will come. They created it. They found out people aren't going to come. They're not going to keep doing it. So there's only one place for money to be made anymore, and that is in the movies, and even that's a dwindling space. So while I hear your argument, Jason, and I don't necessarily want to get into a debate about it, but I sympathize with the argument. I wish this has been a series. The problem is, I don't think people are looking at television anymore as a media, streaming television at the very least, as a medium that makes any money, unless you can get it on Amazon Prime and then or Netflix. And then again, it's kind of like when you sell your movie to them. Like when Sony sells Madam Web to Netflix, they're getting a set price for it, and that's it. There's no more money to be made. I think in the long term, they're thinking if in the alternate universe where Borderlands works and is successful, we'll make Borderlands 2, and that'll even be more successful. And then we'll make Borderlands 3, and we're off to New Hampshire. Unfortunately, Howard Dean, baby.
You really got to let that one die.
I will never let it die. I'm gonna keep referencing that until I'm dead, which will hopefully be soon. Anyway, so my point is, like, I get that. I mean, they could have just made sequels and they could have mined more of this content, and I'm sure that was the thought behind this. Like, we'll make Borderlands, it'll be a fucking hit, and we'll make 2, and we'll do more stuff. And they couldn't even get out of the blocks. Robert, I think Jason's done. What did you think of Borderlands, Robert?
It's not a good movie.
No shit.
And I mean, and I know you're all very used to hearing me say that, and I apologize for that, but make better movies, and I won't have to say it all the time.
Yeah, I don't know why you're apologizing. You're speaking truth, sir.
This movie had like a single-digit critical score on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if it still did. I know it did for a while. You get a single-digit score on Rotten Tomatoes with like 3 things happening in your movie. 1, your movie is bad. 2, your movie is obviously bad. And those are not the same thing, believe it or not. There's some bad movies that are not obviously bad.
Mm-hmm.
And 3, you're not dealing with either an actor or an IP that a bunch of the paid shills who are supposed to be journalists will lie about and will lie for you about. This isn't one of those things where, again, the shills will come out and say, no, the Eternals is a misunderstood masterpiece. Please go see the Marvels. No, this isn't that. Look, I could pick on something else that's an easy touchstone, okay? That's why I do it. It's so everyone understands. I could make an obscure reference, but I'm trying to broaden the thing here. And when you don't have any of that, your movie's going to get... nobody's going to like it. And nobody's going to feel bad about saying that they don't like it. The need for people to be like normalized, to feel like they're part of the group, people don't like saying unpopular things. And when you make it very easy to say negative things about your movie, everyone's going to, and that's the perception issue. As for the craft, like this thing bounces around way too much. I know where they used all their money, and it's unfortunate because there's so much of the rest of it that just looks like it's done on like either bad green screen or small stages. This movie doesn't feel big, and Borderlands as an IP actually does feel pretty big. The planet is big. There's a lot of open. A lot of it takes place outdoors, so you get big skylines, you get these big shots, and this doesn't feel like that. The entire final vault sequence is supposed to be done like against this really great backdrop near the top of a mountain, and because it's a video game, it's our snow level, and I get not necessarily wanting to do that on screen, but to just take that and put it in this small like gulch that just looks cheap. You spent all your money on the backdrops for the opening scenes in Promethea, and then a couple of the flying shots, and it was poorly allocated resources or rushed production when they did a bunch of their reshoots, so it looks bad. There's so much sloppy filmmaking in this. There's a number of times when, if you watch closely, first of all, like all of the like muzzle flare for guns, for these kinds of guns, is added in post because they're not functional weapons. Like you're not even getting like blanks firing out of them. They're not real guns. So you edit that in post, which is what you're supposed to do. There's a couple of different times when you can see like Cate Blanchett doing the motion of, okay, I'm pulling the trigger. I know I sell it. I have to, do the recoil, and nothing is appearing on screen. Like they just didn't do the post stuff right. There's a whole sequence when they've locked a bunch of the psychos behind a bunch of bars, and they're walking backwards. They're walking backwards, shooting at them, and nobody on that side of the psychos is reacting. Like they unload a lot of shots into this and apparently hit nothing down this hallway. There's no sense of continuity of action. There's no sense of like what's going on here actually matters. So there's a lot of stuff like that just doesn't work. Édgar Ramírez is horribly cast for a role that, let's be clear, I don't pick your favorite over actor. I don't know that they could have saved how badly written that was, but they might have at least been memorable instead of Mumbles Garcia.
Christopher Walken, I think, would have given us something memorable.
That kind of performance, yeah, like that's what you kind of needed there. So that's a mess. And Kevin Hart is just horribly miscast. That they did not have a read on that character, and the whole movie is lesser for it. Because in a comedy ensemble, you need a straight guy, right? You need somebody who is there to be the straight man, the deadpan. That's Roland's job. That's the role he fulfills in the ensemble. And you don't have that in this ensemble. Consequently, it's a bunch of idiots with bad one-liners that no one reacts to. Because you don't have
I feel
the
like
contrast.
Cate Blanchett was the straight man.
Unfortunately, she's also too much of a wise ass to be the straight man. Like, she's supposed to be too cynical and too quippy to actually, like, fulfill that role. You needed the Dean Martin to the Jerry Lewis of everybody else. And this ensemble didn't have it. Somebody's got to be Drax, right? Because this is getting unfavorable comparisons to Guardians of the Galaxy for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
You don't have a critical component of what makes some of this stuff work. And then, of course, it falls flat on its face. I'll agree with Jason that Cate Blanchett is a perfectly fine casting choice. She does a perfectly serviceable job. Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of wasted in the role of Tannis, but that's because they don't know what to do with the character, not because of anything she's doing wrong as an actress. The guy who is Krieg is there because he is a good-looking man. Or, has the body, the CGI body, maybe even of a good-looking guy. I don't know. Just wear the mask, take your shirt off, say the crazy line, all he does is deliver like his sound bites from the video game. It's a little bit sad.
I'm gonna keep my snarky comments to myself.
Please do. I know where you're gonna go with that. And for the record, I agree with you, but I don't think we need to have the discussion.
I'm not in the mood to be told to turn my misogyny down a notch because I'm only going to turn it up and rip the knob off. So I'm just going to behave.
No. The general point that, even like Chris Hemsworth came out recently and said he doesn't like doing shirtless scenes.
Yeah.
He doesn't like
it seems the gaze, male or female, has now, the worm has turned and the pendulum has completely swung to the other side, where men are just like, stop objectifying me. I'm not a piece of meat.
And Taika Waititi tells him, shut up, meat. Go take your clothes off.
You're only here for your abdomen. You're only here for your, what's the name of the muscles? Abs. Duh. You're only here for your abs. Shut up. I'm an actor. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so there's that. The decision to merge the character of Tiny Tina with the the angel character from the games. I get that they're trying to do something there because Tiny Tina is a very recognizable part of the franchise. So leaving her out entirely feels weird. But neutering her...
Is she the special in the game, or is she just a character that runs around and throws bombs?
She's a crazy child raised on this batshit planet who throws explosives.
Yeah.
Okay. Is she a playable character, or is she an NPC?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you get to play her in a DLC.
Oh, right.
Okay.
She is briefly there.
Okay, but for the most part,
there's a DLC.
For the most part, she's just an NPC. She's a character you encounter in the game.
Yeah.
You fight her actually in the game.
Okay,
She's a boss fight.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
You fight her. She's a quest giver. It's
what a weird interpretation then.
Well, they're merging her with a character who appears technically in the first game and then is fleshed out in the second, which is an attempt to artificially create a siren because you need a siren's energy to stabilize a vault opening. And that character is actually, I want to say she comes from the Hyperion Corporation, not Atlas, but doesn't really matter that much. So again, they're merging those two characters together, and those are not characters that should have been merged. This was a bad decision in the adaptation process. So Tina in this might honestly be more annoying than she is in the games, because in the games, at least she has personality. Don't get me wrong, I hate her. I really hate every time her voice comes on screen. But in this version, she becomes half of what she is in the games and half of a more MacGuffin plot character in 1 and 2-ish. And this results in a character who is annoying but utterly uninteresting and mostly forgettable.
If they didn't neuter her, it would have been a lot better.
Would have helped. That's not a character who can exist in a PG-13 movie.
No.
Just pretty much straight up. Our entire final action sequence looks cheap, and I hate to say that because everyone's kind of doing their level best, but it just looks bad. There's very little
fairy shield.
There's very little just good to say about this movie. I don't even hate it. It doesn't deserve the emotional investment of hate. It's just a bad movie that will be forgotten. And everyone involved on the creative side should probably feel bad.
All right. Let me handle the crowd pleasing part of this review first. I didn't hate it. I saw it with
it's not worth hating.
I saw it with my kids. I have no connection to the game, so I'm just watching post-apocalyptic Band of Misfits movie number 77. And after, fucking Furiosa and all these other movies of the same basic, idea, I was like, it's fine. It honestly felt to me watching it, again, no connection to the game, so I'm just watching this as a movie. It felt like somebody looked at Fallout or Mad Max, just looked at the post-apocalyptic, drive your dune buggy around the desert and shoot people who look like they came out of a BDSM club genre. All that's its own genre, and did kind of a mockbuster of it. This feels like a straight to Redbox or straight to PVOD. It's like whenever we do the year in review, half of Lionsgate's output went to theaters, the other half went straight to PVOD. Right? Half of this shit doesn't have budgets. There was no money. That's why Lionsgate never do. We can never give Lionsgate an honest assessment because we don't know what these movies made because we don't get to look at the PVOD numbers. We only get to look at in theater, and half this shit doesn't go to theaters. So if you didn't know Borderlands was a video game, or you take Borderlands out of the universe and just let this thing exist as its own thing, this just feels like a straight to DVD, straight to video, post-apocalyptic action comedy. It has absolutely zero style to it, zero aesthetic. It looked like somebody sat down, wrote a list of stuff you would normally see in this kind of movie, and wrote Lobster. Again, because I have no connection to the game, I'm just judging this based on what I saw. Cate Blanchett was okay. I watched the Midnight's Edge take on this, and they were like, another humiliating girl boss failure. And my first thought was, wait, isn't this character in the video game? Why are they making a big deal about this? Here's the problem. And Andre put it this way, and this is the one thing about that video I think bears repeating and has got some truth to it. Regardless of the fact that Lillith is in the game, this was conceived, this was developed at a time in that where that pipeline, going back to I think 2018, where all we're gonna do is lead action girl, kick-ass girl bosses. And it unfortunately entirely missed the window where that would have been even tolerable. Now we're living in the post, I'm just gonna use Andre's word, we're living in the post girl boss world where unless you make an exceedingly good, you make a Deadpool versus Wolverine kind of a movie where you can win over people despite your flaws, people are outwardly rejecting that kind of movie on its face. So unless the people who really like Borderlands, who went to go see this thing, gave it good reviews and there was good word of mouth on it, the average person, the me's of this world who didn't play Borderlands, just looked at this and went, "Oh Christ, it's another she is the key to everything girl boss, action movie. Who gives a fuck?" Oh look, and this lends itself to that point. Oh look, her co-star is midget Kevin Hart. I bet he's going to be emasculated through this whole thing because every guy that that's in these movies is.
In fairness, Kevin Hart, the character of Roland is not actually emasculated. I was a little bit surprised to be.
No. And I'm saying this is impressions, not what actually happened. But if you're an audience member and you've watched everything that's come out since Terminator: Dark Feminism, by this point you're fucking over it, and you're not even giving this thing a chance. And then you hear that it sucks and it's nothing like the game, and you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm glad. I'll save my money.
Well, it's unfortunate that that's the brush this kind of got painted with because. It's really Lillith is not a girl boss.
That's the thing is I do think some of his criticisms are unfair, but I think his take on that's going to be the impression people get is accurate.
That I completely agree with. I mean, we had this the other. There was another movie. It was either late last year or earlier this one, when a bunch of the people were complaining about the writing of a female character, and you and I both kind of went, "Okay, you guys have just lost the plot. She's not that. This is not a Mary Sue."
Yeah, this isn't the Marvels.
Yeah. I forget which one it was, but that's been coming up a bit more recently because, to your point, there's a lot of hangover from 5 years of that, and trying to get away from it is not easy.
Yeah, like I said, we've been dealing with this since 2018. So when I say deal with it, I mean a lot of stuff went into development between 2018 and now, and so it's kind of like the post-COVID backlog where there was this deluge of films that that had to be delayed, and then delayed again because of the strike. So it's just like we spent a couple of years just digging out of delayed films. We're also kind of digging out of the girl boss era. So I think the girl boss era is largely over, but that doesn't mean we're not going to still. Well, that doesn't mean we're still outside of Lucasfilm. We're still going to get those movies because they were made already. They got to put them out somewhere, sometime. But I think
these are the things that David Zaslav should be cutting.
Yeah, well, okay, I don't want to get into that. As for what I actually just thought, Kevin Hart's fine. He's Mike Sikosa called him guy shooting guns guy. I'm like, yeah, he does get that. The plot is utterly incoherent and stupid. The kid with the rabbit ears, Tiny Tina, might be the most annoying character I've ever seen captured on film, and I've seen quite a few.
And again, in the games, she's more annoying.
Actively made me hate this movie anytime she was on screen.
That is them respecting the source material, believe it or not. Make them hate Tiny Tina.
Awful. Couldn't wait for her to get blown up. Like I said, overall, Is this a movie I would have gone to see of its own volition if I wasn't, steadily reviewing everything that came out? No. Is it a movie that I might watch once it came on a streaming service I was already paying for it just to check it out? Yes. Will I remember it tomorrow? No. So
that's the size of it.
Yeah. We're living in a time of sludge, and occasionally in the sludge we find a diamond, but for the most part, it's just a lot of sludge. This was more sludge. I'm not emotionally I'm not emotionally invested in any part of this movie. It didn't move me to emotion. I didn't come into it with emotion. I kind of came into it in limbo, and I stayed in limbo, and I will continue to be in limbo when this movie is over, when this review is over. So if there's nothing else, Jason, you wanted to go ahead and do your plugs? Because I know you like to head up for the money.
Yeah. I think, I don't know when I'm back here. But
I'll figure it out. Hang on.
September
Beetlejuice
9th, I'm
too.
back for Beetlejuice.
Yeah, you and 100 other people. Beetlejuice.
Yeah, so,
you're on for Beetlejuice 2, Venom: The Last Dance, and then Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah. So yeah. But before signing off, I will say this: I also went and I took my daughter to see It Ends With Us, and the same girl that was working the ticket office let me in free because she seen that I purchased a ticket for Borderlands. And she let me have a free ticket to go see It Ends With Us because she said I suffered enough today.
Nah, that's awesome.
So yeah, so she didn't make me pay for a ticket to go see that, which was actually a pretty good movie, but much better than Borderlands, and it dealt with domestic violence. So we'll go. that tells you something.
Dealt with a lot of on-set violence too.
Well. No, it was very misleading. There was literally hardly any domestic violence in that movie. I was very let down.
Again, look up the conditions under which that movie was made.
I got to run and go to the
Those are more
bathroom.
interesting stories.
I was very let down. It did not have enough domestic violence for my liking. I wanted more domestic violence in that movie, and I was very let down. But I'll highly recommend going and seeing it. My daughter enjoyed it. But I will be back. As far as I know, I'll be back for Beetlejuice. If there's 100 people on here, I will not be on Beetlejuice because then it just becomes too overly crowded. But I will be in the on deck circle. But like I said, I mean, hopefully, if you're going to go see this movie, I suggest that you demand a refund soon after.
Don't harass the theater people like that. That's not nice.
Yeah, just ask. They'll probably try to talk you out of seeing the movie, and they'll probably ask you a couple of times, "Are you sure you want to go see this movie?" And they'll probably try to persuade you to go see something else. But with that being said, you guys have a great rest of the show, and I will see you in our group chat and back here for Beetlejuice.
Jason, I'm going to hit you up for NFL picks.
Okay, that sounds good. I will be available.
All right, I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Later.
All right, with Jason gone, Robert and I can roll around in the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
All righty. On a budget of $120 million. This
Probably
thing
more than that. I bet they underreported that.
Yeah, this thing has made a paltry $10 million. It is amazing to me because I feel like it was not last year. It was definitely the year before where we looked at Lionsgate and we went, how the fuck are you still in business? Didn't they? It had to have been the year that Moonfall came out. So it was our end of the year 2022 show. And we went,
in fairness to that,
there's no possible way they're going to be in business any longer.
In fairness to that point, we looked at this and went, if it wasn't for Moonfall, you had a good year.
Right.
But Moonfall just failed so miserably.
Yeah, Moonfall was definitely a multiplier by 0.
Yeah.
So bad. This one not quite as bad as Moonfall, but they're gonna lose their shirt on it. They better. I think what is it? Ballerina comes out next year.
Probably.
Yeah, I think that got delayed till next year. Yeah, they better hope. I'm so not looking forward to Ballerina. Not to be you or anything, but it's just like I'm so like we killed John Wick. Let him be dead. Let this whole franchise be dead. Do something else now. Nope. We're gonna do girl John Wick, and then we're gonna bring him back to life. And we're gonna do Jesus Christ John Wick, and then we're gonna do Robo John Wick, and then we're gonna go to New Hampshire. Yeah.
You know what really kind of baffles me about the people over there in charge of that franchise?
Mm-hmm.
How are you this stupid? Here's what you look, man. You and I were both a little burned out by the time we got to John Wick Chapter 4. I think a lot of people were.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, coming out of that movie, I know exactly what they should have done. Okay, and this is not rocket science. You have Donnie Yen. Give us the Kane Marco spinoff. Let us watch Donnie Yen be a badass for 90 minutes.
No, Donnie Yen's not a girl.
So instead, hey, we're going to try the Continental series. How'd that go? And we'll do the ballerina bit. How's that going to go? No, this is not complicated. Who watches John Wick movies? Who's your audience? Think about this for just a second.
Clearly tween girls.
Sure. So, and who looked
middle-aged women who are really into romance?
Who looked really good coming out of that last movie? Donnie Yen. Give him a movie. Why are we doing this? Who?
Iran. Donnie is fucking ballerina. I'm mixing my metaphors there, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Anywho, back to Borderlands.
Yeah, you're in real like 2003 mood tonight with your reference.
As of August 11th, 2024, Borderlands has grossed $8.6 million, and I stopped aging after 2004.
Well, you stopped maturing after 2004.
Yes, that's the word. Borderlands has grossed $8.6 million in the US and Canada and $1.5 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $10.1 million. Following its opening weekend, Deadline Hollywood, the film would likely lose the studio $20 to $30 million. Oh, you're being
if they're lucky.
That's like you're being so conservative. In the US and Canada, Borderlands was released alongside It Ends With Us and Cuckoo, which was projected to gross $8 to $16 million from 3,125 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made $4 million on its first day, including an estimated $1.32 million from Thursday previews. It ended up debuting with $8.8 million, finishing in fourth. Yeah, not a good weekend at all. So we missed a week because I was doing Sons of Anarchy, among other things. So Deadpool and Wolverine is in its third week. It's still at number 1, and we will talk about the business that it's doing in just a moment. It Ends With Us from Sony debuted at number 2. Twisters dropped from 2 to 3 in its fourth week. Borderlands debuted at 4. You've already heard me play the bomb clip. Despicable Me dropped from 4 to 5 in its sixth week. Trap fell from 3 to 6. I was on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do last week. I reviewed Trap over there along with Back to Black. I won't start singing AC/DC again.
They both stink.
My kids love Trap. I thought it was okay. I had nice things to say about it. I was just telling the guys, normally I come in to their review and I have got a bee in my bonnet. And I've got something I need to say. And I kind of went into that one going, I'm here. I can talk about what I saw in the movie, but it was fine. It wasn't the most embarrassing Shyamalan I've ever seen, which is high praise.
Hang on. The most embarrassing Shyamalan that's a very particular bar.
I mean, like I said, I've seen worse. And you know, this ended fine, unlike because we were comparing it to Old, which is a recent Shyamalan. I think that was 2021, if I remember correctly. And I remember I remember we were all like, yeah, old's good, old's good, old's good. Oh my God, that ending. burn it with fire.
That had a weirder ending, yeah, because didn't we do a comic strip for that one?
We did. It was me, you, Jason, and Alexis, and we compared it to the its original source material, the French comic.
Yeah, more recently he did Knock at the Cabin, which
we reviewed.
Again, was fine.
Yeah.
Again, the most embarrassing Shyamalan is still probably his dog shit take on Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they literally did not have the budget to do a bunch of the effects.
Yeah, I don't know why they bothered then.
Leave that alone. Like, that poor franchise. You created a wonderful animated show that is beloved. It's a genuine masterpiece of the medium.
My son's review of the live action was basically, I don't understand why you did this. It's fine the way it was. You did nothing with this as a, like, it's not quite Cowboy Bebop, but he basically was like, it's okay. Like, if there wasn't already an animated Avatar: The Last Airbender, this would be fine. But there is, and there's still nothing better than the cartoon.
Yeah, if you're not going to do something to leverage the medium change,
yeah,
just don't. And they made a bunch of very, very, very stupid decisions with that one. Ditto Cowboy Bebop, because Mark, you and I both know there is nothing that spells the impending doom of an adaptation more than we didn't read/play the material. We want to do our own thing.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Inside Out 2 in its 9th week dropped from 5 to 7. Harold and the Purple Crayon in its 2nd week fell from 6 to 8. Cuckoo debuted at number 9. Alexis has interest in reviewing that. Chris Owens has interest in reviewing that. I tried to put those two on a movie date, and nothing doing. Everyone's stuck in the mud. They're like, if I don't do it, nobody does, and like, fuck it, whatever. I'm not interested. Like, this is one where I think every time my kids and I have seen the trailer for it, they've looked at me and they're just like, maybe. And like, I can't.
I think I've only seen one trailer for it.
I've seen it a few times, and like, I don't know, gun into my head, maybe. Maybe when it comes on streaming, I'll check it out. But I don't have it in me to go through another one of, like, I Saw the TV Glow, like, what do you call it? Kinds of Kindness, where, oh, look, an independent film. I must run out and see this thing and try to squeeze it into my schedule. No, thanks. No. Speaking of which, Longlegs in its 5th week fell from 7 to 10. Dee, which that my kids did have an interest in. That's 3 weeks out from Focus Features. That jumped from 14 to 11. I think that had its
I was not even aware that thing existed.
Yeah, we've seen the trailer for it because I've taken my kids to a bunch of independent movies this year or re-releases. Like they did the anniversary of Run Lola Run. So the trailer was before that.
Okay.
So I took my kids to go see Run Lola Run. They loved it.
I'm sure they did. You know what, Mark? You should, because its 50th anniversary or whatnot is coming up. Mm-hmm. You should take your kids to go see the re-release of Blazing Saddles.
I was thinking about it. We saw the trailer for it the other day, and they went, "What the fuck is this?"
You just took your children by the shoulder and said, "I have failed as a parent to introduce you to the wonderful world of Mel Brooks so far. Yeah. Let's go watch Young Frankenstein. Let's go watch Spaceballs, so you understand what you're in for." And then
Blazing Saddles, yeah. However, I guess there's an anniversary of Shaun of the Dead coming up, but that I have on my calendar. I might take him to go see that in the cinema. Anyway, yeah, Dee, my daughter was interested in. I think my son might have been too. I showed my son the first 2/3 of Alien today. We had to stop because it was dinner, and then we were running into the latter part of the evening, and we had to stop. But because there was stuff going on. But yeah, I made my son, because we got Romulus coming out this weekend. Mm-hmm. So I sat down. My daughter wasn't interested, but me and my son sat and watched the original Alien, and he was into it. He was interested in the movie. We were having a good, I had to tell him, because he's got this thing now where he has to do a commentary track and but Mystery Science Theater 3000 style, where he has to make fun of everything. And I kind of just look at him. I'm like, don't do that with this one. Study this. This is a mastercraft, and this is a masterclass in film craft. Learn a thing. Pay attention. And he went, "Yes, Father," because he calls me Father.
The fact that we've raised not just you, but like
I
society.
was going to say, we? Wait, what are you, just
The
surrogate
fact
father
that
over here?
societally,
Oh, okay.
societally, we've raised people to believe that everything is deserving of derision, and that is the height of commentary.
In the kid's defense, like
you take him to a lot of crap. That's very true.
Well, in the kid's defense, also, he tries to be funny. He tries to find the humor in a lot of things. I'm not going to take that away from him. Like, I don't
You
want him
should
to be
take
a
that away
fucking
from him.
cynical, angry, sad person. I'm already that. We don't need another one of me. So,
But he is you, Mark. It's already too late.
so anyway, the one thing that we did notice about the set design of the Nostromo was how much it reminded me of TOS, the Starship Enterprise. How in the 60s and 70s, the future computers, everything is blinking and has small buttons and is card operated. And I had a good laugh about that because we're zillions of years into the future here, to where you have a bunch of schlubs driving a space tow truck, but we're still operating on futuristic technology from the point of view of the 70s, and I laughed my ass off at that.
In fairness, though, there is kind of a timeless quality to the futurism that Scott put to film there. Like, if you know what you're looking at, like, okay, this is late 70s imagining the future, but it's actually less dated than like J.J. Abrams' take on Star Trek.
Yeah, for sure. All right, moving on. We got, where are we? A Quiet Place Day 1, and its 7th week, fell from 8 to 12, and I believe is now PVOD.
Probably.
The Firing Squad is one of those conservative type movies that they're trying to compete with Hollywood. That's in its 2nd week, and it fell from 9 to 13. We have Twilight of the Warriors Walled In, debuted at 16. Good One debuted at 25. The Conversation is in its 50th anniversary. Dance First debuted at number 30. Sugarcane at number 37. And that was the weekend that was. Worldwide, hey, we've got movement. We've got rhythm. Deadpool and Wolverine crossed $1 billion, but it still has not beaten Inside Out 2, which I think is
it probably will.
I'm sure it will. It doesn't have that far to go. But Inside Out 2, I think is like one of like the highest grossing animated movies of all time or some shit.
It's probably about the.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and look, but it broke all kinds of records.
I'm pretty sure, I would bet it's the highest grossing Pixar. I don't know. They might have had one that did 2. Finding Dory might have done 2. I can't remember.
Hang on. Now you got me curious. List of Pixar movies. All right, list of Pixar films, and let's find this by
sort by gross.
Box office.
Yeah.
All right, worldwide on the dime, baby. Turning Red. No, I've got this upside down. Yeah.
You're still at the bottom.
Now we hear. All right. There are currently, I believe, 5 movies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 movies that have made $1 billion or more. None of which have made $2 billion. So Inside Out 2 is currently holding the number 1 position at 1.5.
Okay.
Incredibles 2 is 1.2. Toy Story 4 is 1,073,000,000. Toy Story 3, that makes me sad, is 1,066,000,000. And Finding Dory is 1,028,000,000. But if you are curious, the worst performing movie of all time is Turning Red at 20 million.
Well, not counting the ones that went straight to streaming.
Okay, so not counting the straight to streaming one. So they're really all right at the bottom. So Turning Red, Luca, Soul, and Onward. Let's kick those off the list. The worst performing Pixar movies. The bottom 5. You ready?
Sure.
Lightyear at 226 million.
Deserved.
The Good Dinosaur at 332 million, which we reviewed here.
We did. One of the only times I've been reduced to tears on air because that was a bad year for me.
A Bug's Life.
In fairness to A Bug's Life, that's like a 30-year-old movie.
Yeah, that had a $120 million budget, made 363. It's fine. Toy Story. Again,
the first one
on a $30 million budget, which, God, Jesus Christ. If
you can't make anything for $30 million now.
I was going to say, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies that were all $200 million from Lightyear to Inside Out 2. Toy Story was 30 million and it made 365 million. Fucking Lionsgate would have loved that. Come on now. All right.
So anyway, Deadpool and Wolverine almost certainly going to surpass Inside Out 2 at some point.
And that has broken the record as being the most successful rated R movie of all time.
Yes, it has.
$1,030 million. Despicable Me 4 has surpassed Dune. It is the number 3 movie.
Despicable Me 4, pretty solidly in that bronze medal spot at $800 million.
Yeah, 807.
It's got almost 100 million on Dune.
All right, so here's the remaining top 10 because not a lot of movement here. Godzilla times Kong is at number 5. Kung Fu Panda from April is 545 million. Bad Boys Ride or Die is 400 million. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is currently streaming, is 397 million. Twisters broke into the top 10. Made a pretty little penny for itself.
Probably not going to surpass Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at this point. I don't know that it has another 80 million in it, but
yeah, that's 310. And then A Quiet Place Day One, despite our review of it, made $260 million and firmly at number 10. Rounding at the top 20 are Garfield, Ghostbusters, If, Bob Marley, The Fall Guy, Furiosa, The Beekeeper, Civil War, Detective Conan, The $1 Million Pentagram, and Mean Girls.
The musical.
Yeah. All right. So here are the movies currently doing worse than Mean Girls: Madam Web, Argyle, Challengers, Long Legs, which is fine because it still made money.
Dude, Long Legs has raked in 90 million on a budget of my pocket change.
Back to Black made 50 million and it's currently on Peacock. That's where I watched it on when I did the review with the guys. And that's about it. Abigail still down at 42 million. Monkey Man 35 million. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, an unfair $27 million. Poor bastards.
That I feel that's one of those movies I genuinely feel bad for everyone involved in because that movie did not deserve that.
Speaking of didn't deserve that, poor Maxine, $20 million.
No, that's deserved.
So real quick, just want to look at I want to go back to domestic real quick. The drop. Oops, hang on. There we go. So Deadpool and Wolverine in its third week dropped 44.5.
So it probably it would have the week before that, unless you want to look it up manually, would have had about a 50% drop, I think.
Yeah, Trapped in its second week dropped 57%.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that's probably done. Harold and the Purple Crayon, 48.9, but again, it didn't debut particularly high either.
No, it didn't. So even a 50% drop on that one is like death.
Yeah. I asked the ex, I asked Melissa, I was like, hey, are you interested in seeing, you being a teacher and all, are you interested in seeing Harold and the Purple Crayon? And she went, no, I'm aware of the book. I don't give a shit. This does beg the question, before we go out adapting these big hit books, let's see if there's any fucking interest in people, I do think it's an interesting question. Not one that we have to ponder for very long, but just because something is a hit book doesn't mean it's going to be a hit medium, because I do think there's a internal Hollywood executive philosophy of, well, if something's a hit here, it's going to be a hit there. So, let's just keep making familiar stuff. And not everything does. People like stuff, the way it is as a book, and they might not like it as the movie. I mean, also from what I understand, Harold and the Purple Crayon is a very simple concept that they've overcomplicated to a fairly well. And so
some things do not adapt to movie format. Get over yourselves.
A ways back, I don't do this sort of thing anymore, but back when I was reviewing everything and anything, me and Alexis, and I also had time during the day, Alexis and I reviewed 2 seasons of Green Eggs and Ham. And I remember talking to her about, how the fuck do you adapt Green Eggs and Ham, never mind into a movie, into a goddamn television series? And that was an example of it can be done. They put a lot of thought, they put a lot of effort, there was a lot of talent there, and we both loved Green Eggs and Ham. But
I might have been on one of those. Was I on season 1?
I don't remember. I know it was a me and Alexis jam though.
I know that. I think I was on one of those because I watched it and it was really good.
Yeah, it ended up being outstanding, and you can only get away with that so many times. You know?
It takes effort, and look, to be fair, also, if you wanted to take Harold and the Purple Crayon and adapt it into, 15-minute episodic shorts on Netflix or whatnot, you'd probably have a lot of success. Hiring Zachary Levi to do another Man-Child. No.
Speaking of things people are, I'm sure, getting sick of. This is like the third, like we already saw him do. I guarantee you, first of all, they did not throw a lot of marketing behind Harold and the Purple Crayon, which is weird because it's been on the schedule for like 87 years now. Because again,
another one of those that got pushed back a lot.
I follow the schedule. At least I used to. I haven't been doing it as much lately, but I follow the movie schedule on the Wikipedia page all year long. And I'll check it periodically in between other things that I'm doing to see where things are. And Harold and the Purple Crayon has been on the schedule for the last couple of years somewhere. And you're right, it got pushed around a lot, but by the time they were like, okay, we have a set release date, let's go. They threw a couple of trailers out there, but that was all the marketing I saw on this thing, and like they had to have spent a fairly decent amount of money on it. But the other side of that is if you were one of those people who were like me and my kids who saw the trailer for it because we go see everything, and so eventually you see the trailers for everything. Both of my kids have said if we have to hear the fucking trailer, see the trailer one more time for Speak No Evil, we're burning the theater down. We're sick of it.
Yeah, that one got played a lot. You know what really... You know why I'm not going to go see that movie?
What, Speak No Evil? Because we're not reviewing it?
Because I saw the original. I don't need to see the remake.
Fair.
The original's only 3 years old.
It feels like somebody saw God, what's the lead actor's name?
James McAvoy.
Yeah, somebody saw James McAvoy in Split and were like, more of him in a tank top, please. Him and his muscly arms. He's actually good casting for that role. I mean that in all sincerity, but they're either going to keep the original ending and tone, in which case I don't need to see another movie that mean-spirited. Or they're going to change it, at which point most of the artistic integrity goes away. So what's the point? So anyway, I don't know why, they went out of their way to make a Harold and the Purple Crayon movie and then not give it the proper marketing it needed to actually garner an audience. And they threw it out there in the dog days of August. Like,
hey, we can counter program Deadpool and Wolverine with this, right?
Yeah, and Trap. All right. Anyway, that's the money.
It's not like there's two other major family-friendly movies still out there going pretty strong, right?
Yeah, it's not exactly great planning. Not a great plan, as Tony Stark once said. Here we go with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alrighty. Well, what can one say? So that
what, Mark? I sent you this bit of information. I think it's worth sharing with the audience.
Sure.
For a long time, Borderlands had a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Right?
Hang on. And go. Oh, God damn it.
Borderlands had that for all critics, that 0% there, right? Do you know the first critic on all critics to give this thing a fresh review to bump that from 0 to 4?
Please tell me it was Kevin Carr, a fat guy at the movies.
No, it was not.
It was Doug Walker.
No, it was not.
Jeremy Johns.
No, it was not.
Chris Stuckman.
Nope.
Lola Lambchops.
Nope.
Carlo Renata, the curvy film critic.
Nope.
Black Robert Winfree, Armand White.
You think Armand White gave this a positive review?
No, at this point, I'm just naming our Justice League of critics.
Grace Randolph.
Grace Randolph is not dependable.
No, she is not.
Alrighty. I bet she kind of came into it the way that I did, though. Like, I've never played the game. This seems fine. Anyway, so yeah, top critics, it's a 0. With all critics, it's 9%. All audiences is 38%. When you look at the verified audience, it's 51%. The
all
AI
audience is more accurate.
Yeah. Excuse me. The AI writes, glitching out in every department. Borderlands is balderdash. Oh, bad AI.
I'm not going to get too mad at the AI for that one.
I don't like alliteration.
Of course you don't. You're weird. Alliteration is delightful. You know, there needs to be a discussion briefly, and we're not going to have it here, Mark, not you and me, not at this time. But this does have to rank as one of, not the, but one of the worst video game adaptations. Again, we're not like Uwe Ball, utterly incomprehensible, but there's almost no
Captain Lou Albano, Mario. No, wait. What's the one with John Leguizamo? Because who? Oh, it was what's his face from Roger Rabbit.
Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. That's got to be like what, top 5 worst. And are we counting sequels like Mortal Kombat Annihilation?
Yes. First of all, yes, we are.
Okay.
And but
Street Fighter 2, The Legend of Chun-Li. Come on, I can do this all day.
You and me both. We've seen a lot of these things. But this one's just like devoid of even like competent filmmaking in so many elements that
yeah.
It's got to be down there.
They spent Marvel money on this fucking thing, and they held on to it forever, and then when they finally released it, it was a wet fart at best. It's really sad.
I mean, at least The Legend of Chun-Li, for as bad as that movie is, and it's irredeemably bad, didn't cost anyone like their house. You know, that was not a we've bankrupted one of the Chiquita banana farms down in Ecuador.
All right.
Boy, if you haven't looked into the history of that.
Speaking of Chiquita bananas, Fausto Fernandez, a photogrammus. Borderlands is not a good movie, but it is a prime example of how to intelligently non-intelligent life existed and existed. Let me start this again. And this is apparently translated from Spanish or alien. Borderlands is not a good movie, comma, but it is a prime example of how intelligently non-intelligent life existed and exists in unintelligent science fiction, where the misses are more interesting than the occasional hits.
So this guy is more like bizarrely compelled by the utterly incompetence of this movie. I'm not saying you can't have that as an intellectual pursuit, but have enough integrity to say it's still bad.
Rendy Jones of Rendy Reviews. Borderlands is what happens when you order Guardians of the Galaxy off of Temu.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of that.
All right. Troy Ribeiro of Free Press Journal India. Visually, the film does a commendable job replacing the cel-shaded look of the games, but the stylistic achievement only serves to highlight the film's overall emptiness.
I'm not even necessarily sure I agree with him completely on that point, but there are a few visuals that are lifted well enough from the game.
Andrea Garcia of Cine Premiere. The cast is top-notch, and the connection between Tiny Tina and Lillith is one of the most striking points. You, sir, are an alien.
Are the Hispanics just really hard up for stuff like this?
It's like, someone get the Hispanics some culture. All right. Abby Bernstein of Assignment X, decidedly not Spanish. A quasi-decent video game adaptation. Wait.
No, it is not. Just straight up wrong.
Aaron Peterson of The Hollywood Outsider. Not everything needs to achieve high art, and these
you
games
can always tell these idiots when they start out one of their deliberately contrarian reviews with "not everything needs to ...
Yeah, Not everything needs to achieve high art, and these games are fantastically ridiculous as well. So it fits this world. If you leave fan casting at the door and just want a fun time laughing and nudging your friends, Borderlands is an enjoyable romp.
You can only nudge your friends if they know what they're watching.
Susanna Polo of Polygon. If you're looking for an afternoon of silly goofs, great costumes, fun action, and Cate Blanchett showing up to work, you could do worse than Borderlands. Okay,
so with enough qualifiers.
This is how you sell the ugly girl to your friend for a double date. Look, she's got a great personality, and she's really into Star Wars. The fuck?
Honestly, the Star Wars is a bigger turnoff than her.
Yeah, well. Ugh, God, I gotta deal with the accolade.
Look, even Kevin Carr got this one right.
Kevin Carr, a fat guy at the movies. Rather than delivering a decent plot, it leads the viewer through multiple levels where they fight faceless bad guys, leading to a legendary boss battle. You know, like the video game. It's fair.
Except it's less interesting than the video game.
If you say so. Maria Latilla of Film Stories. Borderlands probably won't be remembered as a great video game adaptation, but there's a lot of fun to be had with it.
Supreme Arbiter of fun over here.
Yeah, a lot of that going around. Amy Nicholson of the New York Times, top critic. Like the original first-person shooter game, Borderlands is set on a junkyard planet named Pandora that was once a home base for an advanced alien species, but has since been overrun by violent marauders and women with formidable push-up bras. Thanks for the plot synopsis there, Amy.
You know you want to say it, Mark.
Do you want to say what?
You want to say it.
You self-employed loser? He works for the New York Times.
No, that's what you want me to say.
Okay.
You know what? If you don't want to say it, then we can leave it.
Okay. Moving on. Julian Roman of MovieWeb. Cate Blanchett leads an all-star cast in Borderlands video game. It's a series adaptation that will suffice open-minded fans and get particularly trashed by highbrow critics. Oh, Robert, we are the highbrow.
Highbrow critics like Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movies.
And Grace Randolph.
No, she liked it.
Tatiana Hollander of Screen Rant. Borderlands
For the record, Julie Roman of MovieWeb. Copy-pasting the PR to suck up to somebody to try and get your crappy screenplay greenlit is a bad look.
Last one, because I'm yawning a lot. Tatiana Hollander of Screen Rant. Borderlands rushes through too many plot points for its own good, but it's saved by its likable cast and willingness to lean into video game moments.
And quote again, I did kind of want to... Never mind. Leave it alone then.
I let me say this because I didn't mention it in the craft review. There was a couple of... By the end of the movie, I was over it, but that first 20 minutes of Jack Black interacting with Cate Blanchett, he had some really funny lines that actually legitimately made me laugh. He was just like, your personality is horrendous. And I laughed hard at that. Like, for whatever the reasons are, personal or entertainment-wise, I thought that was funny. So, by the end of the movie, I was very much over Jack Black, though.
I struggled with that one because, like, you meet someone, you approach them in the dark, and they shoot you. And your conclusion from you sneaking up on them and them in this hostile wasteland, them having a completely reasonable response to something sneaking up on them in the dark is, wow, you suck. Like, I'm fine with the jokes, but the setup needed to be so much better for that to actually land.
Yeah.
To the extent that it's saved by the delivery.
Yeah. He said something later on that I thought was funny too. There was a couple of times where Jack Black.
Oh, I'm dancing because you're alive and totally not because I thought you were dead.
All right. So
you want to help me, right? I said I'm programmed to help you.
That is our review of Borderlands. We are programmed to do this review. Next week,
more so than either you or I would ever like to admit publicly.
Finishing out August, we've got Alien Romulus, assuming I actually get to see it this weekend with everything I got going on. And then the following week, we've got The Crow.
No,
I think I told you I showed my kids the original Crow movie, and my son didn't love it. But he didn't. He's very like the anti-goth aesthetic.
No. When I say, of course, he didn't like it, that's not a knock at him. They're like, so much of why that movie works is like I didn't care for it either when I watched it, and your son, for some reason, is a little bit like me in that
Yeah.
respect.
A lot like you.
It's not my, but I watched The Crow and kind of came away like, oh, not my thing, but I do understand why people really liked it.
That's kind of where he landed, because I watched with him and his sister, who is,
she probably liked it more.
Yeah, no, she kind of claims gothy, alternative, skatey chick, and he's very much. Some of it is he's just got to poke at his sister and bully her for some strange reason, but I guess it's a sibling rivalry, whatever. But some of it is very much a you thing, where he just sort of looks at a style and goes, "This style is stupid, and I'm gonna call it out." And he, for some odd reason, has decided like the goth aesthetic, the goth style, is the dumbest thing he's ever seen. He was like, he's so funny. He occasionally does like a Peter Griffin, and I have to laugh because he doesn't know he's doing it. But he was just like, he's like, "You goth kids, why are you so sad? Life ain't so bad." Like, what are you so sad about? His other comment about it, which cracked me up, was because, again, he's grown up with me, and I've showed him the action movies, and he reacts as an old boy should to the Stallones and Rambos, the Stallones and Schwarzeneggers of the world. Again, he loved Bad Boys, but so he likes when men look like men. He's a good boy, and he took one look at Brandon Lee in the Crow makeup and just looked at me, looked at the movie, looked at me, looked at the movie, and said, "Is this like, it's supposed to be fucking intimidating? What's with the clown makeup?" And I'm just like, ugh, Jonas, you had to be alive in the 90s, I suppose. There was a great conversation about that, because we talked about like the influence the comic had that created the world where the movie got created, and then the influence the movie had on the rest of the culture. And Melissa goes, a segment of the culture. The rest of the world couldn't give a shit. And I'm just like, I don't know. Considering Sting took on that, that look for a good couple of years, and she's like, well, not everyone's a wrestling
Sting
fan
took on
either.
the look for the rest of his career.
Well, he was doing the Joker there for a little bit, but it doesn't really matter.
Look, we blame the Crow for Hot Topic is how this breaks down. And that's why we're all a little bitter at it.
Yeah, I'm burning down the Hot Topic. All right.
One of the best soundtracks ever, though.
Yes, bar none. So this Wednesday, I have backed myself into doing a review of The Acolyte with 87 other people.
You should not do that.
God, if I could get out of this. Well, here's the thing. I have thought about dropping off the review, because there's, again, a lot of people said they're coming, but a lot of people say they're coming to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of people don't make it. So I don't want to leave Alexis there holding the bag, because a lot of her reviews, and this is a little how the sausage is made, but she puts a lot of work. Regardless of what I think of her hosting style, the girl is dependable and dedicated, and she puts a lot of work into doing these reviews. She puts a lot of work into networking and finding guests, and then we get to the review, and half the time she's down to one loyal person. 87 people say they're going to show up, and one person does. And I don't want to leave her holding the bag. I don't want to drop off the review to find out there is no review, because everyone dropped off. So I'm going to do The Acolyte, and I'm going to try to behave myself. But this is one of those.
You shouldn't. This deserves
to be other than the commentary about structural organized religion versus spirituality. I have nothing to say about this fucking show. And I went into it because I wanted to know what the controversy was, and the controversy was dorks got angry it wasn't their Star Wars, and I'm over that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So he's like, well, the show sucks. It has one interesting thing to say, and it says it poorly, and the controversy is dumb. Fuck am I doing this review for then? Let me leave this to everybody else.
In fairness, if you want the distilled version of why The Acolyte is kicking up controversy, Mark's not wrong. That here's the thing, okay, and I promise I'll be brief, because we're don't need to be here too much longer on this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do plugs.
I know, but it breaks down to the importance of canon.
Yeah, I talked about this with my kids about. You build a world, the world has to be consistent, or it reminds everyone that it's fake and no one wants to do it anymore.
And The Acolyte, it breaks. Again, not to say this again, but here's the thing. It's one thing to break the sort of canon that Disney quote unquote decanonized when it bought Lucas Enterprises, right? Because they bought they bought everything from George Lucas and immediately said all the novels, all the comics, all the other stuff, gone. Not canon.
Right.
Which is to say does not matter. Because canon is sort of collectively what we agreed happens and therefore what matters.
Yep, it's what goes into the Bible. It's what Gospels go into the Bible and what Gospels get cut out.
And we don't talk about how stupid the Nicene creeds are. Sorry,
Sure
not a creedist over here, but boy, I just probably pissed off a lot of people with that.
I doubt it. I doubt anyone listening to what the fuck you just said. I did. I took that class in college, but go on.
But it's one thing to like, oh no, Darth Plagueis was not a genius bioengineer, head of the largest banking clan in the galaxy. He's Gollum. It's one thing to do that because you've sort of expressly decanonized all the stuff that talked about him and how awesome he is. It's another to take all the characters that on screen in movies that you say still matter said one thing and manifestly show not just the other thing happening, but them being aware of the opposite happening. Look, you want to say that, oh no, the guy said the Sith have been extinct for a millennia when we see that same character in this show dealing with Sith. That's the disconnect. It's not, again, there can be unreliable narrators on screen. You can't then show that they're lying. Like, again, that's where the disconnect is. That's the biggest problem. It's the utter arrogance and stupidity and narcissism of everyone involved in the creative end going, screw everything else. Here's a thing I want to do badly, and I don't care what it does to anyone else. I'm going to do my art, and you can suck it. And
to quote
pathetic...
Dominique Fishback from The Deuce, once you let me into the pretend, I didn't need to be here anymore.
Yeah. That really is kind of the long and the short of it.
Anyway, so yeah, we got the Acolyte, which is Alexis hosting, and I'll be there trying to stay awake. However, this was supposed to be me and Evan Bevins, and then Shay Tate decided she wanted to go, and then Evan found out that he had another commitment. So now it's me, Shay Tate, and Dorian Price, and we're looking at comic book adaptations that have weird comics. So we have Tank Girl, Mystery Men, and The Rocketeer, of which I showed all three to my kids, and Jonas's favorite one was Mystery Men.
That tracks.
Yeah. Next week, we got Alien Romulus. Alexis has a review of Cape Crusader, and the Metal Hammer of Doom Jukebox is back. Against my better judgment, I let Robert Cooper pick the album, and he picked something I can't even pronounce. Alceste, La Chance de l'Aurore. This is my stab in the dark. Robert,
what language is it? Hang on, dude.
I'm going with French.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's French black metal.
Okay, that's fair.
What do you got going on there, Toots?
Well, last Saturday, I watched maybe the worst card the UFC has produced in the last 15 years.
That bad, huh? Is it bad? Was it worse than the one night of fights where it was like all decisions all the time? Every single fight was a decision, and Dana White wanted to cry.
Yes, for a couple of reasons. One, the general quality of the fights was lower than that.
Mm-hmm.
Two, we only had 3 finishes anyway.
Okay.
There were only 10 fights because 2 of them fell out. 3 people missed weight. 2 of those by margins right around 5 pounds.
Wow.
Well, non-title, one of them would have been 3.
If you're going to do that on an ongoing basis, you need to hire Scott Steiner to sit at the scale and just yell he's fat.
A little public shaming would not go too far amiss with some of these people, I think. Or just play that clip before they walk to the cage.
Just on a loop.
No, like that's not their walkout music, but it's like here's the siren that everybody knows this guy missed weight. It's just Scott Steiner. She's fat at the chick who's never made bantamweight and this time weighed 141 pounds.
Oh, are you serious?
Yep.
Good God.
So just once, really loud, Scott Steiner, they're fat. And then everything else goes off normally.
Perfect.
I tell you, the guy who does the guy who has the
sad.
the guy who does the Scott Steiner impression in the comment section at 411 caught one of my typos and had a good laugh at it. So doing SmackDown last week, I was saying that, part of the gimmick that's going on, Cody wants to fight Kevin Owens for the belt at the next pay-per-view. Kevin Owens is like, I don't deserve it. He's being a sad guy about it for some no discernible reason. So Cody says, I'm going to go talk with the GM. I'm going to get it done. You can't stop me. And Cody leaves. And Owens then walks around for a second and then follows him. And I said, I meant to say, and Owens follows Cody not far behind. But R and T are right next to each other on the keyboard. So it came out, he's not fat behind. And it's Kevin Owens that I'm talking about.
Okay, great.
And because it's a real word, like I didn't misspell it in the sense, I didn't say the word I wanted to say, but I created a real word. So I didn't get a like, hey, you misspelled a word notification at the end of that sentence.
Right.
So I didn't catch it until I saw this comment quoting what I said and then getting a good laugh out of it. And like, okay, I got to go edit that, but thank you. So yeah, covered terrible UFC event on Saturday. This week, WWE SmackDown on Friday. UFC 305, they're back on pay-per-view, and they have a pretty decent pay-per-view card this time around. If you want a full preview, listen to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I do that every week. I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly from the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. So again, stop by over where you listen to podcasts. You can find me over there. That's that's a good time. And yeah, next week, Romulus. So hopefully we can have a good movie. Mark, can we have a good movie, please? I would like a good movie.
Like I said, I think Romulus is going to come across like a remake of Alien. So all of that good 70s stage design, by stagecraft by H.R. Giger, right out the window, and we're going to get something that if you took like Alien Covenant and crossed it with the original Alien and then gave it a cast full of subpar actors, like if you dumped water on Sigourney Weaver and then dumped water on whatever spawned out of her. That's going to be Alien Romulus.
I actually have a bit more hope for it than that.
Since when did you turn into me?
I like the director.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. Like, well, look, what else do I have to go on at this point? I've seen the trailers. Trailers can be misleading, but they give me a little bit of hope.
That's the thing. It's like it feels like everyone's like, well, let's remake Alien, but they like kick up the action a little bit. I said that when I watched it today. This will be the last thing I say because we really got to go. But I said to Jonas when we were watching it, I was like, you really have to pay attention to this movie. This is a very quiet movie. And he was like, should I turn the volume up to 100? And I'm just like, well, then that make it not quiet. It's like, no,
not
it's still
what we mean.
It's like it's still a quiet movie, except you'll have occasional screams for no good reason that are too loud. I said, no, it's a movie that begs you to pay attention. You have to listen to what they're saying. It's a movie that definitely is built on suspense. And I'm
watch the actors. Watch what they're doing. Yeah. They're going to tell you things with their physical action.
But I said to him, I was like, I don't think you could make Alien today. I don't think people have the patience for it. Alien Romulus, everybody. It's the movie you wanted from Alien with zero for the ADHD riddled crowd with no patience at all.
Again, I'm slightly more optimistic, but we'll see.
We'll see where we land. All right, folks.
If I have a gripe, hang on. Last thing on this, because I'll probably talk more about it next week. Dear everyone in Hollywood, I know why this has gone the way that it has. Because you do everything with green screen now, but it makes your movies look like crap. Light your sets. Somebody put up side by side one of the stills from the Romulus trailer, I think, of guy showing woman how to shoot the gun, right? Next to the same basic thing from Aliens with Michael Biehn and Sigourney Weaver.
Mm-hmm.
And saying nothing about anything, like it's just the two still shots. Good grief, the difference in lighting philosophy. Stark, and it's everything nowadays looks muddy. Nobody lights anything properly.
All right, folks, thank you for joining us here on Damn You Hollywood. He's Robert. I'm tired. Be well. Be well, be safe, and behave.